The blood-red sunset cast long shadows across the wooden porch of the Callahan ranch as Lily Vaughn pulled her horse to a stop, dust billowing around her tired mare. It had been 3 weeks since she'd received the telegram about her father's death, and 2 days of hard riding to reach Ash Fork, Arizona territory. The year was 1885, and at 22, Lily had never expected to return to the place that held both her sweetest childhood memories and her deepest heartache. The ranch looked smaller than she remembered. The paint on the main house was peeling, the corral fences sagged in places, and the barn door hung at an awkward angle. Her father, once the most respected cattle rancher in Yavapai County, had clearly let things slide in the years since her mother's death and Lily's subsequent departure for San Francisco. As she dismounted, the front door of the house swung open. A young woman about Lily's age appeared, her face drawn and pale, her dark blonde hair pulled back in a simple braid. This must be Margaret, her father's young widow, the woman he'd married just a year ago in what the townsfolk had described in their letters as a shocking development for a man of 60. "You must be Lily," the woman said, her voice barely audible over the evening wind. "I'm Margaret." "Your father spoke of you often." Lily nodded stiffly. "I came as soon as I got word. Please come inside. You must be exhausted." Margaret stepped back, holding the door open. Lily hesitated, then led her horse to the water trough before following Margaret into the house. The interior was much as she remembered, though dustier, darker, with an air of neglect that matched the exterior. Her father's favorite armchair sat empty by the fireplace, his pipe still resting on the small table beside it, as if he might walk in at any moment to claim it. "I've prepared your old room," Margaret said. "It's mostly as you left it." Lily swallowed hard. "Thank you, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry for your loss." Margaret's eyes welled with tears. "He was a good man, your father. His heart just gave out while he was mending fences on the north pasture." Dr. Mitchell said it was quick. Lily nodded, fighting back her own tears. Despite their differences, despite her anger at him for remarrying so soon after her mother's death, he was still her father, and now he was gone. "If you don't mind," Lily said, "I'd like to freshen up before dinner." "Of course." Margaret gestured toward the hallway. "Take all the time you need." As Lily walked down the familiar corridor to her childhood bedroom, she caught sight of a photograph on the wall, her father and Margaret on their wedding day. The stark reminder of her absence from that day, her refusal to attend out of loyalty to her mother's memory, made her heart clench with regret. Inside her old room, Lily sank onto the bed and finally allowed the tears to come. For her father, for her mother, for the years she'd wasted in anger and resentment. Tomorrow she would need to visit the cemetery, see to her father's affairs, and figure out what to do with this ranch she'd never expected to inherit. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Lily dressed in her simple black morning dress and made her way to the kitchen, where she found Margaret already preparing breakfast. The young woman looked as if she hadn't slept at all, her eyes red-rimmed and her hands trembling slightly as she worked. "Good morning," Lily said, hovering uncertainly in the doorway. Margaret turned, offering a weak smile. "Good morning. I hope you slept well." "Well enough," Lily lied. In truth, she'd spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, memories of her childhood washing over her in waves. "Can I help with breakfast?" "No, please sit. It's nearly ready." As they ate in awkward silence, Lily studied the woman her father had chosen as his second wife. Margaret couldn't be more than 25, with delicate features and a gentleness that reminded Lily of her own mother. It was no wonder her father had been drawn to her. "I need to ride into town today," Lily said finally. "To speak with Mr. Holden about Father's will." Margaret nodded. I'll come with you if you don't mind. I haven't been to town since it happened. The ride into Ash Fork was silent save for the clip-clop of hooves on the dusty road. The town had grown since Lily had last seen it. New buildings lined the main street, and the railroad depot bustled with activity. Progress had come to this corner of the Arizona territory, even as Lily's own life had seemingly stood still. At the lawyer's office, Mr. Holden, older now, with more gray in his beard, greeted them somberly. "Miss Vaughn, Mrs. Callahan, please sit down." The reading of the will was straightforward. To Lily's surprise, her father had left the ranch jointly to her and Margaret, with specific instructions that they work together to maintain his legacy. A small trust had been set aside for Margaret's care, but the bulk of the property and livestock were now Lily's responsibility to manage. "He hoped you would come home one day," Mr. Holden explained, looking at Lily over his spectacles. "This was his way of ensuring you would." Margaret's face had gone white at the news. "I had no idea," she whispered. "I never asked for any of this." "It's all right," Lily said, though she wasn't sure if it was. How was she supposed to run a cattle ranch? Her life in San Francisco as a bookkeeper for a shipping company hardly prepared her for this. And how could she work alongside this stranger who had taken her mother's place? As they left the lawyer's office, Margaret suddenly clutched Lily's arm. "I think I need to sit down for a moment," she said, her voice faint. Lily guided her to a bench outside the general store. "Are you unwell?" Margaret pressed a hand to her stomach. "I haven't been feeling well for some weeks now. I thought it was grief, but—" She looked up at Lily, tears in her eyes. "Your father didn't know. I only confirmed it myself the day before he died. I'm with child." The news hit Lily like a physical blow. A half-sibling. Her father's last legacy, a child who would grow up never knowing him. "I see," was all she could manage to say. Margaret's tears flowed freely now. "I don't know what to do. I have no family, no means of support except what your father left, and now this baby." Lily sat beside her, conflicted emotions battling within her. Part of her wanted to walk away, to return to San Francisco and leave this woman and her unborn child to fend for themselves. But something in Margaret's genuine distress, in the vulnerability of her position, touched Lily's heart. "We'll figure it out," she heard herself say. "Father wanted us to work together, so that's what we'll do." The weeks that followed were difficult. Lily struggled to learn the business of cattle ranching, poring over her father's ledgers late into the night. The ranch hands, loyal to her father, were skeptical of taking orders from a woman who'd been away for years, but they respected her determination and willingness to learn. Margaret, meanwhile, grew more withdrawn. Her morning sickness was severe, leaving her pale and weak. At night, Lily often heard her crying in the bedroom that had once belonged to Lily's parents. Despite their shared circumstances, a wall remained between them built of grief, jealousy, and unspoken resentments. It was nearly a month after Lily's return when disaster struck. A flash flood washed away part of the north pasture fence, and dozens of cattle were lost. The financial blow was significant, coming just as they were preparing for the fall roundup. That night, after calculating the losses, Lily slammed the ledger shut in frustration. "We can't afford to replace those cattle before winter. Without them, we won't make it through to spring." Margaret sat across from her, her hands folded over her slightly rounded belly. "What about a loan from the bank?" Lily shook her head. "Mr. Patterson made it clear last week that he's not interested in extending credit to two women trying to run a ranch. Never mind that I've shown him the books and proven we were profitable before the flood." "Then what can we do?" Lily had no answer. She stared into the dying embers of the fire, feeling the weight of her father's legacy slipping through her fingers. The next morning, Lily rode into town to post letters to cattle brokers in Prescott and Flagstaff, hoping against hope that someone might extend them credit. As she tied her horse outside the post office, the sound of music drifted from the new hotel at the end of the street. Curiosity drew her closer. A small crowd had gathered in the hotel's parlor, where a woman sat playing a piano. Her voice, rich and clear, filled the room with a song about lost love and new beginnings. Lily stood transfixed, the melody washing over her like a cool stream in the desert heat. When the song ended, the crowd applauded enthusiastically. The woman at the piano smiled and stood to take a small bow. She was striking tall and slender, with auburn hair pulled back in a fashionable style, wearing a traveling dress of deep blue that spoke of Eastern refinement. "Thank you all for your kind welcome," the woman said. "I'm Melody Carmichael, and I'll be performing at the Ash Fork Hotel every evening this week while awaiting the repair of the train line to California." As the crowd dispersed, Lily found herself approaching the piano. Something about the woman's music had stirred emotions she'd been suppressing since her return, not just grief for her father, but a deeper longing for connection, for understanding. "That was beautiful," Lily said. "I haven't heard music like that since I left San Francisco." Melody looked up, her green eyes sparkling with interest. "You're from San Francisco? I'm heading there myself once they clear the rockslide from the tracks west of here. I was living there until recently. I've returned home to take over my father's ranch." "A female rancher. How fascinating." Melody's smile was warm and genuine. "I'd love to hear more about that. Would you join me for tea?" Before Lily could respond, a commotion outside caught their attention. Through the hotel window, Lily saw one of her ranch hands riding hard down the main street, searching frantically in all directions. "That's Tom," she said, hurrying to the door. "Something must be wrong." She stepped onto the boardwalk just as Tom spotted her. "Miss Vaughn, thank heavens." "It's Mrs. Callahan. She's taken ill real bad. Doc Mitchell's with her now, but he sent me to fetch you right quick." Fear clutched at Lily's heart. "I'll come at once." As she untied her horse, she was surprised to find Melody Carmichael beside her. "Is there anything I can do to help?" the musician asked. Lily hesitated only briefly. "Do you ride? I grew up on a farm in Ohio. I can manage." "Then come with me. We could use another pair of hands." They rode hard back to the ranch, the urgency of Tom's message spurring them on. When they arrived, Dr. Mitchell's buggy was outside the house, and the ranch hands were gathered anxiously on the porch. Inside, Lily found Margaret in her bed, her face alarmingly pale, her nightgown soaked with sweat. Dr. Mitchell looked up gravely as Lily entered. "It's the baby," he said quietly. "She's bleeding. I've done what I can to stop it, but she needs complete bed rest for at least 2 weeks. Even then, I can't guarantee." Lily moved to Margaret's side, taking her clammy hand. "Margaret, can you hear me?" Margaret's eyes fluttered open. "Lily," she whispered, "I'm sorry. The baby." "Don't worry about anything right now. Just rest. We're going to take care of you." As Dr. Mitchell prepared to leave, he pulled Lily aside. "She needs constant attention. Someone should be with her day and night. The slightest exertion could cause her to lose the child." Lily nodded, though inwardly she despaired. How could she manage the ranch and provide round-the-clock care for Margaret? The roundup was just days away, and without it, they would lose what remained of their herd. As if reading her thoughts, Melody stepped forward. "I can stay with her during the day. My performances aren't until evening, and the train won't be repaired for at least 2 weeks." Dr. Mitchell looked skeptical. "Are you experienced in caring for the ill, Miss Carmichael?" "Melody Carmichael." "And yes, I nursed my mother through a long illness before she passed. I know what to do." Lily looked at the woman in surprise. They had just met, yet here she was, offering help when it was most desperately needed. "We couldn't ask that of you," she began. Melody smiled. "You're not asking. I'm offering. Besides, it sounds like you have a ranch to save." That night, after settling Margaret and showing Melody the basics of the household, Lily sat on the porch, exhausted but unable to sleep. The stars spread across the vast Arizona sky, seemingly infinite in their brilliance. Her father had loved nights like this. God's own lanterns, he'd called the stars, lighting the way home for wandering souls. The sound of soft footsteps broke her reverie. Melody joined her on the porch, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "I thought you might need this," she said, offering one to Lily. "Your stepmother is sleeping peacefully for now. Thank you." Lily accepted the cup gratefully. "For everything. I don't know what we would have done without your help today." Melody settled into the chair beside her. "Tell me about the ranch. Your ranch hand mentioned something about a roundup." Lily explained the situation, the lost cattle, the financial strain, the crucial importance of the upcoming roundup. "If we don't bring in the remaining herd before winter, we'll have nothing to sell in spring." "But with Margaret bedridden, you need to be 2 places at once," Melody finished for her. "Exactly. And no matter which I choose, I fail someone, either Margaret and my father's unborn child or the ranch he worked his whole life to build." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the night sounds of the desert filling the air around them. "What if," Melody said slowly, "you had help? Not just with Margaret, but with the ranch?" Lily looked at her questioningly. "Before I became a musician, I grew up on a working farm. I can ride, I can count cattle, I can even mend fences if needed, and while I may not know everything about ranching, I'm a quick learner. But your performances at the hotel, I can still do those, we'll work around them." Melody smiled. "Consider it payment for room and board while I'm stranded here." Lily studied the woman beside her, this stranger who had appeared like an answer to an unspoken prayer. There was something about Melody's confidence, her easy competence, that inspired trust. "All right," Lily said finally. "If you're serious, I accept your offer, but I warn you, ranching is backbreaking work. So is touring with a theater company. At least here the air is clean and the company is interesting." Melody's eyes caught the starlight as she smiled, and Lily felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. The next morning, Lily woke to the smell of coffee and biscuits. In the kitchen, she found Melody already dressed in a borrowed riding skirt, her hair braided simply down her back, preparing breakfast. "Good morning," Melody said cheerfully. "I've checked on Margaret, she's still sleeping, and I've laid out some food for when she wakes. I thought we might ride out to see the north pasture today. You mentioned that's where the fence needs repairing." Lily couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. "You're really taking this seriously, aren't you?" "I always do, whether it's music or mending fences." As they rode out across the ranch, Lily found herself talking more than she had in months. She told Melody about growing up here, about her mother's death from consumption 6 years ago, about her bitter departure when her father had announced his intention to remarry. "I was so angry with him," she confessed, as they surveyed the damaged fence line. "I felt like he was betraying my mother's memory. I said terrible things, things I can never take back now." Melody dismounted, examining the splintered fence posts. "Grief makes us do strange things. I'm sure he understood that. Maybe. But I wasted so much time being angry, and now he's gone." Lily blinked back tears. "And I'm left with this ranch and a stepmother I barely know who's carrying my father's child." "Life rarely gives us what we expect," Melody said softly. "But sometimes what we get instead can be just as meaningful if we're open to it." They worked side by side through the morning, salvaging what they could of the fence and marking what would need complete replacement. Melody proved as capable as she'd claimed, taking instruction easily and offering suggestions that showed good common sense. By midday, they'd made significant progress. As they rested in the shade of a cottonwood tree, sharing a canteen of water, Lily found herself curious about the woman who had so unexpectedly entered their lives. "You said you grew up on a farm, but now you're a musician traveling to California. How did that happen?" Melody's expression turned wistful. "My father was a minister with a love for hymns. He taught me to play the piano from the time I could reach the keys. When he and my mother died of influenza 5 years ago, I sold the farm and used the money to study music in Chicago. I joined a touring company 2 years ago." She paused. "But I've always missed the land. There's something honest about working with your hands that you don't find in city life." "I know exactly what you mean," Lily said. "San Francisco never felt like home, no matter how long I stayed." Their eyes met, and Lily felt that strange flutter again, a recognition of something shared, a connection forming between them that went beyond their current circumstances. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Mornings and early afternoons were spent on ranch work, Lily teaching Melody the basics of cattle management, both of them working alongside the ranch hands to prepare for the roundup. Evenings, Melody would ride into town for her performances at the hotel, returning late with stories of the travelers and townspeople she'd met. During the day, they took turns sitting with Margaret, whose condition improved slowly but steadily under their care. To everyone's surprise, it was Melody who seemed to bring Margaret the most comfort. She would read to her from books borrowed from the hotel library, or tell stories of her travels, or sometimes simply play soft melodies on the old guitar she'd found in a corner of the Callahan parlor. One afternoon, as Lily returned from checking on the herd, she paused outside Margaret's room, hearing Melody's voice singing a gentle lullaby. Through the partially open door, she could see Margaret resting peacefully, one hand on her growing belly, while Melody sat nearby, strumming the guitar. The scene stirred something in Lily, not the jealousy or resentment she might have expected, but a kind of tender acceptance. That evening, when Melody prepared to leave for her performance, Lily found herself reluctant to see her go. "Be careful riding back. The moon won't be up until late." Melody smiled, adjusting her hat. "I've made the ride enough times now to know the way blindfolded, but thank you for worrying." "I'm not worried," Lily said quickly, then laughed at herself. "All right, perhaps I am. You've become important to us here." Melody's expression softened. "I've come to care about this place too, more than I expected to." Her eyes held Lily's for a moment longer than necessary before she turned to mount her horse. "I'll be back before midnight." As promised, Melody returned safely that night, but the following evening brought an unexpected development. A severe thunderstorm rolled in just as Melody was preparing to leave for town. Lightning split the sky, and thunder shook the very foundations of the house. "You can't ride in this," Lily insisted, pulling Melody back from the door. "It's too dangerous." "But my performance, no one will expect you to risk your life in this weather. Send word tomorrow explaining your absence." The storm intensified through the night, rain pounding on the roof and wind howling around the eaves. After checking on Margaret, who slept soundly despite the tumult, Lily and Melody sat before the fire in the parlor, listening to the storm rage outside. "I've always loved thunderstorms," Melody confessed, wrapping her hands around a cup of hot tea. "There's something so primal about them, so honest in their fury." Lily smiled. "My mother used to say they were God's way of reminding us how small we are. A wise woman, your mother." Melody set down her cup. "Tell me about her." And so Lily did, sharing memories she hadn't spoken aloud in years, her mother's love of wildflowers, her skill with needle and thread, the way she would sing while working in the garden. As she talked, Lily felt a weight lifting from her heart, replaced by a warm gratitude for the woman who had shaped her early years. "She sounds wonderful," Melody said when Lily finally fell silent. "I wish I could have known her." "She would have liked you," Lily replied, surprised to find she meant it. "You have her same way of seeing beauty in unexpected places." The firelight played across Melody's features, highlighting the gentle curve of her lips, the thoughtful depth of her eyes. Lily found herself noticing details she hadn't before: the small scar at Melody's temple, the way her hands moved expressively as she talked, the rich auburn highlights in her hair. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Melody asked softly. Lily felt her cheeks warm. "I was just thinking how fortunate we were that your train was delayed. I don't know how we would have managed without you. Perhaps it was fate." Melody's voice was quiet, almost tentative. "I've never believed much in coincidence." The fire crackled between them, and outside, the storm began to subside, the spaces between thunderclaps growing longer. Something was shifting between them, something neither had put into words, but both could feel: a deepening connection that went beyond friendship or gratitude. Before either could speak further, a cry from Margaret's room broke the moment. They rushed to find her awake and frightened, convinced the storm had damaged the roof above her. While Lily reassured her that the house was sound, Melody fetched a fresh glass of water and helped adjust her pillows. As they worked together to settle Margaret back to sleep, Lily caught Melody's eye across the bed. The look they shared of mutual concern, of shared purpose, confirmed what Lily had been feeling. Whatever was growing between them, it was real and increasingly difficult to ignore. The day of the roundup dawned clear and cool, a perfect October morning. The ranch hands had gathered before sunrise, and Lily gave final instructions while Melody prepared provisions for the long day ahead. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Lily asked as they mounted their horses. "Roundup is the hardest work of the year." Melody's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I wouldn't miss it for anything." They rode out with the men, heading toward the far pastures where the cattle had been grazing all summer. The work was exactly as grueling as Lily had warned: long hours in the saddle, dust choking their throats, the constant vigilance needed to keep the herd together and moving in the right direction. Yet Melody thrived in it. She took instruction well, anticipated problems before they arose, and worked without complaint from dawn until dusk. The ranch hands, initially skeptical of the fancy city musician, came to respect her determination and quick thinking. As the sun began to set, they had successfully gathered most of the herd into the holding pens near the ranch. It was a smaller count than in previous years, but better than Lily had feared after the flood. With these cattle, they might just make it through the winter. Tired but triumphant, the group made camp for the night, planning to drive the herd to the railroad loading pens in town the next day. Around the campfire, the mood was celebratory. One of the hands produced a harmonica, and soon Melody joined in with her clear voice, teaching them songs they'd never heard before. Later, as the men settled into their bedrolls, Lily and Melody walked a short distance from camp, surveying their work by the light of a nearly full moon. "You were magnificent today," Lily said, her voice soft in the night air. "I've never seen anyone take to ranching so naturally who wasn't born to it." Melody smiled. "I told you I missed working the land. This feels right somehow." They stood in comfortable silence, shoulders almost touching, looking out over the sleeping herd. The night was cool but not cold, the stars brilliant overhead, the distant howl of a coyote the only sound breaking the stillness. "What will you do when the train is repaired?" Lily asked finally, voicing the question that had been hovering between them for days. Melody turned to face her. "What would you like me to do, Lily?" The directness of the question caught Lily off guard. She looked into Melody's eyes, seeing in them a reflection of her own uncertainty, her own hope. "I'd like you to stay," she admitted, "but I know you have commitments, a career. Commitments can be broken. Careers can change." Melody took a step closer. "In the past weeks, I've found something here I didn't know I was looking for. Not just the land or the work, but you, the way you care for Margaret despite your complicated feelings. The way you've taken on your father's legacy. Your strength, your compassion." Lily's heart raced. "Melody, you don't have to say anything now. Just know that when the time comes to decide, I won't be bound by what came before, only by what might be ahead." The next morning they drove the cattle into town, where buyers from Phoenix were waiting. The price was fair, not exceptional, but enough to see them through until spring. As Lily completed the paperwork, she caught sight of Melody across the street, speaking with the hotel manager. Later, as they rode back to the ranch, Melody was uncharacteristically quiet. "Is everything all right?" Lily asked. "You seem troubled." Melody hesitated before answering. "The train line will be cleared by the end of the week. The manager asked if I would extend my engagement at the hotel, but I need to give him an answer tomorrow." The news hit Lily harder than she'd expected. Despite their conversation the night before, part of her had hoped the repairs would take longer, giving them more time to figure out what was growing between them. "And what will you tell him?" she asked carefully. "That depends on you." Melody reined her horse to a stop, turning to face Lily. "I meant what I said last night. I care for you, Lily, more than I thought possible in such a short time. If there's any chance you might feel the same." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. Words failed her, so instead, she leaned across the space between their horses and pressed her lips gently to Melody's. The kiss was brief but filled with promise. When they parted, Lily found her voice at last. "Does that answer your question?" Melody's smile was radiant. "It's a start." When they returned to the ranch, they found Margaret sitting on the porch. Some color finally returned to her cheeks. Dr. Mitchell had visited that morning and declared her out of immediate danger, though she would still need to be careful until the baby came. That evening, the three women shared a meal together for the first time. As they talked about the successful roundup, about plans for winter, about names for the baby, Lily realized that something fundamental had changed. The grief that had driven her actions since receiving news of her father's death had begun to transform into something else, not forgetting, but healing. And much of that healing had come through Melody's presence. Later, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Lily took Melody's hand in hers. "Stay," she said simply. "Not just for a while, but stay." Melody squeezed her hand. "Are you certain? My life has been so different from yours. I've been a wanderer for years now." "Maybe it's time to stop wandering." Lily looked out at the land that had shaped her, the ranch that was her heritage. "We could build something here together, something that honors my father's memory while creating our own legacy. And Margaret, the baby, their family now, my family." Lily smiled, surprised at how right the words felt. "There's room enough here for all of us." Melody leaned her head against Lily's shoulder. "Then yes, I'll stay, for as long as you want me." "That might be a very long time," Lily whispered. "I'm counting on it." The following day, Melody rode into town to give her answer to the hotel manager and to send telegrams canceling her engagements in California. While she was gone, Lily sat with Margaret, helping her sort through baby clothes that had been packed away since Lily's own infancy. "You're really all right with Melody staying?" Lily asked as they folded tiny garments. Margaret looked up, her expression earnest. "More than all right. She brings music and life back to this house, and she makes you happy. Anyone can see that. I wasn't sure how you would feel, given your relationship with my father." Margaret set down the small gown she was holding. "Lily, your father loved you very much. His greatest regret was the rift between you. He would be overjoyed to see you finding happiness, building a future here." Tears pricked at Lily's eyes. "I wish I'd come home before it was too late. He knew you would come back eventually. That's why he left the ranch to both of us. He believed in your capacity for forgiveness." Margaret hesitated. "I loved your father deeply, though our time together was brief. But I never sought to replace your mother in his heart or in this house. There was room for both loves in his life, just as there's room for all of us here now." Lily reached across the pile of baby clothes and took Margaret's hand. "Thank you for loving him when I couldn't be here, and for being patient with me since I returned. We're family now," Margaret said simply, echoing Lily's own words from the night before. "The past is behind us. What matters is what we build from here." When Melody returned that evening, she brought news that surprised them all. The hotel manager had offered her a permanent position 3 nights a week performing in the hotel parlor, with accommodation for nights when she needed to stay in town. "It's the perfect arrangement," she explained excitedly. "I can still make music, still connect with people through songs and stories, but I'll be here at the ranch most of the time. The best of both worlds." That night, as Lily and Melody walked under the stars, their hands intertwined, they began to plan their future. The ranch would need work to restore it to its former prosperity, but with the proceeds from the cattle sale and Melody's additional income, they could begin making improvements immediately. "We should fix the barn first," Lily said. "Then perhaps add to the herd in spring." "And expand the garden," Melody suggested. "Fresh vegetables would be good for Margaret and the baby." They walked on, dreams and plans flowing between them as easily as breath. When they reached the old oak tree at the edge of the yard, the tree under which Lily's parents had once pledged their love, they stopped. "Are you sure about this?" Lily asked one last time. "About us? About staying?" Melody turned to face her, taking both her hands. "In all my travels, in all the places I've seen, I've never felt like I belonged anywhere the way I belong here with you. Your grief brought me here, Lily, but love is what's keeping me." Lily leaned forward, capturing Melody's lips in a kiss that held all the promise of their shared future. Under the spreading branches of the oak, with the ranch house glowing warmly in the distance, they sealed their commitment to each other and to the life they would build together. Winter came to the Arizona territory, bringing cool days and cold nights. The ranch house, once filled with silence and grief, now echoed with music and laughter. Margaret's health improved steadily as her pregnancy progressed, and the bond between the 3 women strengthened with each passing day. Melody divided her time between performances at the hotel and work on the ranch, bringing back stories and news from town to share over dinner. Her music filled the house each evening, sometimes lively dance tunes that had Lily and Margaret clapping along, sometimes tender ballads that brought tears to their eyes, always songs that seemed to speak directly to their souls. On Christmas Eve, with a light dusting of rare snow covering the ground outside, they gathered in the parlor. Margaret had decorated a small pine tree with paper ornaments and candles, a tradition from her childhood in Kansas. Melody played carols on the old guitar, and Lily surprised them both with gifts she'd ordered specially from Prescott: a new shawl for Margaret, and for Melody, a beautiful leather-bound journal for composing music. "I have something for you too," Melody said, reaching behind the sofa to produce a long, narrow package wrapped in brown paper. Inside, Lily found a hand-carved sign reading Callahan and Vaughn Ranch in elegant lettering. "For the front gate," Melody explained. I commissioned it from Mr. Jenkins at the sawmill, I thought. Well, I thought it was time this place reflected both its past and its future. Lily traced the letters with her fingertips, emotion welling in her throat. It's perfect, she whispered. As they sat together by the fire, snow falling gently outside the window, Lily reflected on how completely her life had changed in just a few months. The wild grief that had consumed her upon her return had transformed into something she'd never expected to find here: contentment, purpose, and a love that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The new year brought new beginnings. In late January, as a cold rain fell outside, Margaret gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Thomas James Callahan Thomas, for Margaret's father, James for Lily's. The arrival of the child brought a renewed sense of hope and joy to the ranch, and Lily found herself falling instantly in love with her half-brother. "He has father's eyes," she remarked softly as she held him for the first time. "And your smile," she added, looking up at Margaret. Margaret, exhausted but radiant, reached out to squeeze Lily's hand. "He'll need both of you in his life. To tell him stories about his father, to teach him about the ranch, to help him grow into a man who honors his heritage." "We'll be here," Melody promised, standing beside Lily and looking down at the tiny bundle in her arms. "Every step of the way." As winter gave way to spring, the ranch flourished under their combined care. The new sign hung proudly at the entrance, and improvements appeared steadily: a reinforced barn, freshly painted outbuildings, an expanded vegetable garden bordered with the wildflowers Lily's mother had always loved. Melody's performances at the hotel became a highlight of Ash Fork's social calendar, drawing travelers and townspeople alike. Her reputation spread throughout the territory, bringing offers from larger venues in Prescott and Flagstaff. But she declined them all, content with her life divided between the ranch and the small town stage. On warm evenings, after little Thomas was asleep, Lily and Melody would often sit on the porch, planning and dreaming together. They spoke of expanding the herd, of breeding horses, of perhaps one day building a small cabin by the creek where they could occasionally escape for time alone together. "I never imagined my life could be like this," Lily confessed one such evening, her head resting on Melody's shoulder. "When I received that telegram about father, I thought I was returning only to bury him and settle his affairs. I never expected to stay to find this." "Life has a way of surprising us," Melody replied, twining her fingers with Lily's. "Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our greatest sorrows." As summer approached, bringing with it the anniversary of Leonard Callahan's death, Lily suggested they host a gathering at the ranch, not a somber memorial, but a celebration of his life and legacy. They invited neighbors, ranch hands and their families, townspeople who had known and respected her father. The day of the gathering dawned clear and bright. Tables were set up under the shade of the oak trees, laden with food prepared by all three women. Little Thomas, now 5 months old and growing steadily, was passed from arm to arm, admired and cooed over by everyone present. In the afternoon, as the guests relaxed in the shade with cool drinks, Melody brought out her guitar. "I've written something special for today," she announced. "A song about Leonard Callahan, based on the stories you've all shared with me." As she began to play, a hush fell over the gathering. The melody was simple but haunting, and the lyrics told of a man who loved the land, who built a legacy with his hands, who found love twice in his lifetime, and whose spirit lived on in the ranch that bore his name and in the hearts of those who remembered him. By the song's end, there wasn't a dry eye in the gathering. Lily, standing with her arm around Margaret who held baby Thomas, felt a sense of completion, of closure. The wild grief that had consumed her upon her return had been transformed through Melody's songs and stories into something healing, something that honored the past while embracing the future. Later, as the sun began to set and guests departed, Lily found Melody sitting alone by the creek, her guitar beside her. She sat down on the grass, leaning against Melody's shoulder. "Your song was beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you for that gift." Melody turned her head to place a gentle kiss on Lily's temple. "Music has always been my way of making sense of the world, of healing wounds, celebrating joy, expressing what can't be said in ordinary words. You've brought so much more than music to us, to me." Lily took Melody's hand. "You arrived when I was drowning in grief and anger, when I couldn't see past my own pain. Your songs, your stories, your presence, they helped me remember not just what I'd lost, but what remained, what could be built anew. We built it together," Melody reminded her. "And we'll keep building, one day at a time." As they walked back to the ranch house, hand in hand, the setting sun cast long shadows across the land they now shared. Inside, Margaret was singing a lullaby to Thomas, the gentle notes drifting through the open window. The scene filled Lily with a profound sense of rightness, of belonging. The wild grief that had once consumed her had been transformed into something beautiful, a family forged not just of blood but of choice, a legacy that honored the past while creating something new, a love that had found her when she least expected it but needed it most. That night, as Lily lay beside Melody in the quiet darkness, she whispered, "Do you believe in fate? That some things are meant to be?" Melody's voice was thoughtful in the darkness. "I believe that life offers us possibilities, crossroads where we can choose one path or another. The magic happens when two people choose paths that bring them together, even when those paths seem unlikely. Like a musician stranded in a small Arizona town and a grief-stricken rancher's daughter, exactly like that." Melody propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at Lily in the moonlight streaming through the window. "I was meant to pass through Ash Fork in a single day, on my way to somewhere else. You were meant to settle your father's affairs and return to San Francisco. But here we are." "Here we are," Lily echoed, reaching up to trace Melody's cheek with her fingertips. "And here we'll stay." "Together," Melody promised, leaning down to seal the word with a kiss. Outside, the stars shone brilliantly in the vast Arizona sky, God's own lanterns, as Leonard Callahan had called them, lighting the way home for wandering souls who had finally found where they belonged.